Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Unfiltered Vet Discussions. My name is Kelly. I'm being joined with David and Peter today. And per normal, we're just kicking the tires on ideas and what's going on in life. Um, and we came up with, are you making beautiful sandcastles or are you throwing sand at each other? And before we go any further, please like or share. It does matter if you get to hear us again. Like if we show up in your feeds, you should follow us and then we'll show up more. So that's kind of cool how that works. Just push a button. Same with your social media. We'll show up more if you push a button. It's not that hard. You can do it. So other than that, sandboxes. So to start a story, I was started talking because we are friends. And so we shared life off recording about our personal lives because we are first and foremost friends in this group of people. And I was talking about how the farmers market that I co-own and created is opening up. Our first event is this Saturday,
Woohoo!
and it's our second year. And I'm very, the first year I was just pulling people to come in. And this year I have people tripping over it. And we have 34 people and two food trucks and a musician this year and a huge canopy place. And I even have two interns. Okay, so one's my daughter and her friend, but they still are earning their keep. So, we have labor. But it's interesting on the story on how the farmers market got started because I certainly didn't ever wake up one morning and go, I think I want to start a farmer's market today. Yay, let's go. That's not what I did, but I live in a small, what they call bedroom communities, surrounded by bigger communities, and we have zero retail space in town. We have three beautiful, beautiful restaurants, Big Boar, River Inn, and the Hilltop, and they all are run independently. They all have their stories. They all have people waiting in lines, but we have zero space for like what you would find in any other town. A boutique, not here. Do you want something for a drugstore? Go up the street. Do you have a coffee shop? No, ma'am, we don't. And so I was trying to start a tea shop to have a place for people to come and connect. And I chose tea because coffee is everywhere. We are the home of Caribou, so there's no competing with Caribou. Like a diehard fan of that place. But can people have a cup of tea and have a conversation and slow down for just a hot second? Like back in the day, people would just have a pot of tea, and how long you wanted them to stay depended on the size cups that came with the tea. I don't know if you guys know that. So if you don't want them staying very long, you got the
Oh my gosh.
microscopic, like you hit the social nicety bucket, but you weren't like, digging in. And if you wanted, you really loved them, the bigger teacups like kind of came out, right? Um, so I kept asking the town, we need a place to come together. We need a place to come together. People want to come together in our town. They're like, yeah, but Dunn Brothers is 6, 7 miles up the road. And I'm like, yeah, it's 6 to 7 miles up the road. They want to walk. They want to walk to this place. We have trails. We're a little town. And then one of the ladies looked at me and said, will you start a farmer's market? And I said, yes, yes, I would, not knowing absolutely shit about starting a farmer's market. So, but the town agreed. We need a place. So once a week in the warmer months, because we are in Minnesota and gets a might bit chilly here. So for 16 Saturdays, we will have a place for people to meet. Dunn Brothers is actually coming to us now and is going to be serving coffee every day this year. They're so excited. I have that we have a new assisted living place in town. I called them up and said, do you have any seniors who are still capable of independently managing themselves to come be the greeters of the market and say hello and come and welcome. So we're going to have Mickey. He drives a
Nice.
motorized wheelchair. He's going to motorize over from the assisted living place, and his wife's going to come, and Mickey's going to say hello to people, and he's super excited. So every parts of this town, right? Like we have so many small businesses working out of their homes are coming out to come together, regardless of what else they believe in,
Yeah.
to connect. And that was one of the big premises of why I was willing to go through all the work is to have a place for people to connect because it's not just buying your bread. I was literally watching people in front of me last year go, "Oh my God, you live here?" And they worked in the same building. And they never knew at the same company that they lived in the same town that's the size of a postage stamp, right?
Connection,
Yeah,
Kelly, connection. It's just
that's it.
in a world, in a country, in a state, in a city, in a community that is so disconnected, where the human race lives on a digital platform, which is not mentally healthy, nor was it how we were morphed from Neanderthals. We are becoming so divided. And so I'd give you a standing ovation, but Bruce is asleep in my lap for bringing people together in a collaborative, cooperative fashion to build sandcastles in your small community.
Yes,
Now,
and
you could,
learn their neighbor's not a weirdo. They're actually kind of nice, you know?
And to actually have a community and a collection of people for the true sense of that word, not just, and we use that word pretty flippantly, but yeah, what you're doing is bridging the gap. And, like you said, you can't get angry at people and you're meeting, you're not making assumptions now. You're actually getting to know the other people you live in the same town with. That's pretty cool. Well done.
Thank you. It is pretty cool. And it really does fill my bucket watching all the collaboration going on. I mean, there's two levels. There's collaboration among the vendors. So it's like their own community. And man, if somebody's not
Support
doing
local. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
they'll rush over and help get their tent up in the morning, or they'll help unload the car. And they make it happen, right? And then you have the visitors who are coming in and it's also interesting to remember this story just stuck out that last year on our opening market day, a woman came up to me. I'm wearing a bright yellow shirt that says Crow River Market. It's really hard to miss. She goes, "I came here specifically to buy watermelon." And I said, "Well, those seeds just got planted 2 days ago in farmers' fields." So it was, it's not only building the community, but it's also understanding the process of how everything works. Like she just thought watermelon were available 365 days a year and was totally disconnected from the local community of what can be grown in our
Yeah.
area. And we've lost that fact. And she just looked at me. She goes, "Wow, I guess you're right. I didn't even thought about that." And I'm like, "You want to give us a few weeks and come back?" Because it's going to be a hot minute, like more in August. She's like, "Oh, okay."
well, again, the messaging that is there is extrapolatable to your business and Beyond Indigo, to
Yep.
David's business with Simmons, to the multitude of things that I'm involved with, and with specifically my colleagues, the veterinary profession, in terms of community. And I mean, each of us are in relatively small niche marketplaces,
Hmm.
and there's enough business for
Yeah.
everybody. So I really believe in the term colleague, and I abhor the term competition, except in sports. Um,
Yeah.
so we really, and especially in veterinary medicine, where the external variables are putting so much pressure on the small business people, we really need to come together in a collaborative, cooperative, commiserative, if that's the real word, fashion to support one another. And, it really would behoove us as veterinarians to go and introduce yourself to the colleague down the street and not belittle them because they're there.
Yeah.
And in the good old days, we used to do that,
Yeah.
but we don't do
Yeah.
it anymore. So,
I remember Dad in his practice. And it was driven by emergencies, after hours calls. But he facilitated all the practices in the area that wanted to participate, and almost all did, of helping each other and taking turns. Before ERs were present, they just all agreed, yep, I'll do this Tuesday, and they just had a rotating schedule. So in their outgoing message, they referred to each other so that one person would take the emergencies for that night or that weekend day and evening instead of all of them having to do it. I hear less of those kinds of stories of people. I still do hear them though. That, oh, we ran out of so and so. Oh, yeah, we'll just go down the road. We'll call Sarah's practice or Bob's. And there is some collegiality. I'm with you though. You're not competing.
Mm.
There's enough pets out there. Your experience, one practice's experience is different from another's. And clients self-select for the experience they want. You don't have to hoard the clients or feel threatened by another practice. That, yeah, do what you do it well, do it proud, and not be threatened, I think, by the other practices. Reach out to them, get to know each other. We do that in the valuation sphere. We have the valuation council. 25 friends, colleagues, competitors, mostly competitors, but we're unified by the passion of value and helping people in that sphere. And so we do work together. And I like seeing that. And when practices in different communities can reach out and not be afraid of each other, be
And
collegial.
I think we need to ask ourselves why. I mean, if we're personally fearful or I'm worried about a competitor, why am I worried? Usually it boomerangs right back to yourself. There's something that you feel you're lacking of,
Mhm.
therefore that you are feeling threatened by competitor A, right? And and then it's easy and ripe ground to make up stuff about your competitor. And also it's ripe ground to shit on yourself more and make yourself feel more miserable. And then the divide grows, right? And so if you're worried about your competitor, why are you worried? If you're worried about your competitor because you're already having problems making ends meet financially, I'm making this stuff up. Well, wouldn't it be better to figure out why you're not making your ends meet than worried about the competitor not coming along? So then you need to call somebody like David who can come in or a consultant to come in and go, can you just look at my books and see where I'm going sideways, right? Getting more data, more information, less emotions. More data, less emotions. And find out, kind of weave your way through the problem is what we kind of recommend,
And not be throwing sand,
and not be
building the
throwing
castles.
sand. Because
Yeah.
that's a lot of energy, guys. Throwing sand is a lot of energy.
So let me let me go back in time and look at our world. Now, Kalina just went through the application process to go to college, as did your kids, David.
Yep.
And my kids are out of school. But if I go back to that process, and even let me go back to my world, okay? When I was in high school in the dark ages, um, I knew to be able to get into veterinary school, I had to get good grades. And most preparation and most testing was done by of the individual. And so you are also set up throughout elementary school into high school in a competitive setting
Yeah.
because it's called the curve. Somebody gets an A, somebody doesn't. And we carry that, or I carried it into undergrad because I knew I needed to have good undergrad grades. And they don't let us take tests as a group. You
Right.
know, it's not like I can phone a friend,
Not
do
a
a 50
collective.
50, or ask the audience. So who am I? I prep myself. I take the test myself because I'm competing with the other, let's just say, 1,000 people who are applying to veterinary school to get the grades to get in. And then you get into veterinary school, and there are 100, 150, 200 students, all of whom have the same goal in mind, which is to graduate and get a job. But the curriculum doesn't support the group, they support the individual because they have to grade on a curve as well. So we have created a the ultra competitive world
Yeah.
just at the academic level, and we really don't prepare in many cases for life after graduation, which is all about a collaboration. Why don't we take tests as groups? Why don't we do more group projects? Why do we focus on EQ in a world that is dominated by, why do we focus on IQ in a world that is dominated by EQ? Thus, we set up the IQ people to fail when they actually have to work in a collaborative fashion. I'm off my soapbox for just a minute.
Well, it's interesting because my daughter does have to do a lot of collaborative stuff.
Good.
I mean, she just did a huge portion of her grade was based on a collaborative group presentation that they've worked on all summer. I mean, all semester. We're not to summer yet, semester. And she had to learn to work with the different various personalities in there,
Hmm.
which, they were randomly selected, so they couldn't even choose who they wanted to. And I mean, that's like a work environment. Hello, you don't necessarily get to choose
Yeah.
who you're walking into, right? Like these are now your work partners. And she's like, Mom, this is hard. And I'm like, yep. So what are you going to do about it? Right? Problem solve, think your way through it. But there is more collaboration that way, which I think is good because that is truly more work environments these days. You just aren't a solo operator. Um, Very few jobs are solo operators.
But I'm guessing she's not taking biochemistry, calculus, and organic
Organic.
chemistry, biochemistry, physiology.
Nope, she's not on that track, but she is on, strategic communications, PR, and marketing. And so at least one sector is doing that. I don't know about all those other ones and how they all work together or not, because that's not our world. So I have no
But
comment. Maybe David does.
I think you're hitting it on the head, though, Peter, because all through that path, heading towards your profession, you're being hammered. It's you versus the world.
Hmm.
And then you add in the digital component where I can be anonymous and lash out at people because I feel threatened or some emotional reaction and this allows me to react instead of think through and have the consequences of my actions. When you have that farmer's market and we know each other and I can call you out and say, why'd you say that about me? And have a discussion. But now in the digital world, it can be anonymous.
Hmm.
And and I've been taught I got to look out for me. Me, not the village. And we see that even in the conferences where all these people come together for the same thing, to learn, to grow, and yet we sit, not we, but the people sitting in the rooms are like, I'm not going to talk to anybody because even though we all want to learn about what this speaker is going to teach, I'm, I don't know you. I don't want to know you. It's me, and we need to break those expectations and barriers down. And the conferences are a great way to start that. Just, hi, what do you, and have that, and then take that home with you and practice to practice and community outreach and that. I know easier said than done, and it's all idyllic and dreamy, but I'm optimistic. I would like to see people try to make those changes.
Well, I think I tell Kalina this all the time. Mom, I know, right? That kid tone. Mom, I know, back off. I'm like, yeah, I know, but you rarely do, which is why I keep bringing this subject back up again, because I'd like to see you from knowing to doing. And I think that applies to all of us. A lot of us do know. We do know that would be probably great to introduce ourselves to our neighbor,
Yeah.
but we don't. right? And it's really small actions in my world of belief, just watching the farmers market and things like that. It's those small interactions. A, it's not as scary as you think. B, you will not combust on site if you do so. And three, you might actually find out that you have a new friend that you didn't know, or a better community to live in, or a resource you didn't know you had by saying hello.
I am going to do a shout out to the groups of 20, also known as
Yeah.
VMG. They, veterinary management groups, veterinary study groups, whatever, they have about 60 of them around the country that are demographically diverse in the sense that they're not in the same town or city. They have to be separated because of some of the discussions that occur. But you will bring in 20 or so hospitals from different areas within the country to talk about what's going on in their practices. And they share data, they aggregate data, they can see how they stand in an aggregated fashion within their group or within all of the other VMGs. But they also share issues and they solve each other's problems. Now, yes, they are not across the street from one another, but it does give veterinary colleagues who are in these environments the opportunity to look and to see how collaboration ultimately can work.
Mhm.
And we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
We just have to find somebody else's wheel and copy it. And we spend way too much time trying to be the head horse or the head mule. And really, the smart mules are the ones at the back or the geese at the back who are letting the ones at the front do all the work. So I'm a
Um,
big advocate for VMG.
I am too. And you can create your own. Dad was in VMI1 and he put a group together and that group still exists and we meet twice a year. And I'm such an advocate, for practice owners to call your colleagues and just have that leaning. This group, seeing all of them go through different issues, and collectively, the rising tide lifts all of them because they help each other. And it doesn't have to be a formal VMG, capital letters. You can put together, I remember Roger Cummings helping people put groups of 20 together back in the day. Well, Jenny, our own Jenny, did that in the practice manager side. We were talking about that in a recent thing. I think practice managers build your cohort and help each other and share and vent and build and create because by helping each other and not being competitors. Yeah, you can cast a broader net so that you're in different markets and different types of practice. It just takes somebody like Kelly saying, I'm going to make this happen. Step forward
Really,
and
that's
and
it.
build a collective to help
It,
each other and
I mean,
and become collegial and supportive. Build a community.
but really, David, you're right. All it says is, yeah, yeah, I'll do that. I mean, that's people are like, well, how did you start a farmer's market? I'm like, well, I was asked, and I went, yeah, I'll figure
Okay.
it out, right? And even a collegial thing, it doesn't, I think we also, there's a mythology too in the fabric of our society. If we do anything, it has to be big and it has to be like amazing and it has to be like rainbows and fairy dust. And kind of what we're talking about being collegial, why don't we start with a cup of coffee? Hey, meet at the local coffee shop, 8 a.m. or whenever, or a glass of wine on the other side of the workday. Whoever wants to come, come. And then you just introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Kelly. Who are you?
Yeah.
So in 1994, um, I was a young hospital owner. I think I'd owned my hospital for about 5 years, trying to show how old I am. And I couldn't understand. I was involved. I just started to get involved with the local organized veterinary medicine through the Southern California VMA, and I hadn't become a president or anything like that I can think of. But I put together a meeting of about 35 or 40 hospitals in South Orange County, California. So these were all within probably less than 20 miles, which I'd like to say is 20 minutes, but it's not Minnesota or Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's Orange County, so it's probably an hour. Um, and we met and talked about issues. What were the issues in 1994? If you might remember, VCA had about 18 hospitals.
Hmm.
Um, PetSmart was starting to have hospitals known as VetSmart then. It was before Banfield. Scott Campbell was part of that group as well. We were having mobile clinics just set up in parking lots and do vaccinations out of the back of a van. Um, Cost of care was not as big an issue because our fee schedules were too low to be an issue. But, we were concerned and started to meet and talk about the external influences that we were dealing with. We've been meeting 3 to 4 times a year for the last 32 years. We've had over 100 meetings. The group has changed because people have sold their hospitals, people have died. We've added some younger people. But the premise has always been it's hard to look a competitor in the eye, but it's easy to look a colleague in the eye. And so by
I like
bringing
that.
people together to share ideas and commiserate with the challenges, and whether it's trying to find a veterinarian or keep whatever the issues, um, we've done pet fairs together, we've done community advertising together, and a variety of different things. And so my message to this is if there's one person in your community who can take the lead and send out the invitation. And I paid for the first meeting just to get people to come. And I have been facilitating these meetings for a small annual fee for the last 30 some odd years. It's doable. Most of the time, we really don't have an agenda, or I ask people to help create the agenda, but it's just an opportunity to bring people together in a disorganized organization.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brilliant. I wish more practices had that because they end up being on the island and just not realize. Now, some of them, it's intentional. They want to keep their head in the sand and they're not going to do evaluation until they're ready to sell, which is too late. And there's consequences to it. But the other ones that we see, you know, they're not alone. They're actively managing their practice. They're reaching out and seeking things. Great things happen in a practice when you've got that collegiality. Uh, and you're not alone. And I think there's better balance then as well. Life, work, you know, all wishful thinking maybe, but it's attainable. That's the part. Just takes that first step.
Yeah. And we've all done it in our oh my gosh, can't speak, personal lives, professional lives. I go talk to other marketing company owners in the veterinary space. Hey, how are you doing? The independent ones. Now the corporate, it's hard to find who to talk to because the faces change all the time and whoever's there is always different. But the independent ones, we've gotten to know,
Yeah.
a little bit about our personal lives, our kids, our interests, how's it going? And you can have those conversations and just talk about it a little bit. And you know what? Again, you don't combust and nobody dies. So it's okay. You can
And
do,
your business doesn't suffer,
no,
right? You don't have to be adversarial
no.
uh, just because you're
But
in the same profession.
if I may remind our colleagues, my colleagues specifically, but our colleagues because you work with them as well, you're one complaint away from a state board or a
Yeah.
malpractice lawsuit. And that complaint could be exacerbated by the second opinion veterinarian down the street who you have not befriended, but you have considered to be a competitor, and they have decided that they would make your life miserable. And so, if we really want to support one another, and this is what I would do if I got a second opinion, I would call the primary veterinarian whose case it was and talk to them if I could, even before I went in the room.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
What's
and
the
I think,
backstory? Yeah.
yes, there's always a story behind the story. And we don't always do that due diligence, which basically has us going in the room trying to either not say something bad or intentionally saying something bad and questioning. So I would strongly suggest the benefit of collegiality in the healthcare field, and not financial collegiality, but professional collegiality, is to make sure that you are not going to be thrown under the bus
Yeah.
because of that competitive nature that's out there, because it can make your life really miserable.
It's a very good point. Very good point.
And so,
Yeah.
David, I'm sure you're dealing with this even with the valuation council, because there are people I know that you've invited to be part of that group that have not participated, or
Yeah.
there are others who are out there that says, why should I follow their lead? I like the way I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So where do we go
So,
with this, gentlemen? I mean, we've given lots of examples, and I think watching in the world that I have done and what people's comments are me, going back to the farmer's market as an easy example, I get, wow, how could you do this? And I'm like, it wasn't that hard. I mean, yeah, it was hard. There's pieces, parts that, learning new software is never fun and things like that. But the reality of it, there's such a massive mental barrier between, it's like there's almost this glass wall between like the people who are looking at me on the other side going, wow, how did she do that? And I'm like, well, I created a door in the wall and I walked through and said, shit, I'm going to give it a go. Am I open to failure? Yeah, I'm willing to fail. Will I fail? Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's parts that I'm
right,
gonna fail, but it's called the learning curve, and then I'm going to do it better and figure it out and have conversations. But if you keep giving your power away to the people who've gone to the other side, you're always going to be on the one side of the wall going, kind of being the victim, going, gosh, I wish that was me. I wish I
Yeah.
had done that. Well, why don't you? I mean, it's really literally that easy. There's no magic wand, there's nothing magic sauce to put in your food at dinner. Just go try it. Literally. That's it. That's the whole that's the whole secret to
Just
success.
try. Yeah.
Just try it.
um, God, I got so many places to go with this. But the first thing that came to mind was Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom, which is basically find somebody to go to lunch with every week,
Yeah.
um, or then add somebody else, and then add somebody else, and then add somebody else. And then every Friday you're meeting at Coco's with a group of 20 people, and you bring radiographs and you bring lab work and you talk about cases and you share, hey, how's business, um, etc. It's just getting out of your little Dilbert-like cubicle,
Yeah.
Mhm,
opening the door, essentially, as Kelly was saying, and not being afraid. And I just think it takes one leader, Kelly, in your situation.
mhm,
David, actually probably your dad, because he was probably part of the, and you as well, that valuation council through Vet Partners. Myself with Vets for Pets, which is the group's name. But it just takes one. And in this current day and age where many of our practitioners are very young, um, and they're not used to a live group face to face over tea or coffee, this is an uncomfortable situation because most socialization now is on social media. That's why it's called social media. It really should be called anti-social media.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think it just takes one person to make the invitation.
To
mhm.
have the
Yeah,
intent, right? Living
literally, it's just one.
intentionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
The podcast that I do with Phil Nelson, besides the one that I do with Kelly and David and the rest of the group, started because I reached out to Phil in June of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd. And I said, Phil, what the hell is going on? We're going backwards. What happened to our society? And then for the last 6 years almost now, we've been having conversations. And the reason it was named Courageous Conversation is because we basically envisioned two neighbors who really had never had a conversation before, reaching out and inviting each other to have a conversation over the hedgerow between the houses or on the front porch, sitting there in a rocking chair, depending upon where you were in the country. Um, and that's what we're advocating for here, is
Yeah.
to find somebody to help you build the sandcastle and stop just grabbing hands full of sand and throwing them across the street. And I've got colleagues that have told me they literally will walk across the street to avoid walking in front of a colleague's practice if they're in a community with all of that. And it's like, why? WTF?
Yeah. Don't want to be seen in front of it. That's
Right.
silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead, walk by it, open the door, and go in and say, "Hello, my name is Dr. So and so, and I just wanted to introduce myself. And if you guys, we're putting together a coffee group, and can I have an email to send you an invite?" I mean, or give them a personal one on the counter, print a piece of paper. You will not die. I think though
No,
people's fear is so great, they do think they're going to combust on the spot. Like, I don't know, right?
I haven't, David, you may have seen more than I have, but I have not seen any veterinary hospitals with gun turrets on the top of
Yeah.
the building
Nope.
or,
Or moats.
yeah, remotes or three-headed dogs at the front. Well, some of the front desk people are probably like Giglamish, the dogs at the gates of hell.
Yeah.
Uh, but most practices are pretty welcoming, and most client service people are taught to be welcoming, and they don't know that you're a veterinarian when you walk in the door. Oh,
Yeah.
just a quick story. This is a funny story. Um, I was having my, maybe it's just TMI. I was having my colonoscopy. And for those of you who have had that experience, they anesthetize you, they put a catheter in. So the nurse came to put a catheter in. My blood pressure is routinely low, so it's not easy to find veins. And she looked at the right arm, couldn't find one. She went to the left arm, finally found one. And she put it in and she said, "I have to be transparent with you." And I said, "Okay." I was
Yeah.
I was in a gown and I was really not wearing anything below it, so transparency was my concern. But she said, "I know you." And I said, "Oh, because I don't remember you." She said, "I work at the local specialty hospital. I've worked there for 30 years as a credentialed RVT. And I know you and I know your reputation and I know all the doctors that are there." And I said, "So you know this?" And it's like, yes. And that is the reputation that you want to have is
Yeah.
I know you, I
And it's good.
respect you,
Yeah.
and that I'm honored to be able to put your catheter in. It wasn't a urinary catheter, it was an IV catheter. Let me make that clear. But isn't that what you want to have as a
Yeah.
legacy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Was that
That's
TMI?
nice.
No,
No,
not in today's world with
I think
social
it's spot
media
on.
where people see things that I get told by the child and my head whips around. I'm like, what?
So there you go. I've exposed myself.
Yes, in more ways than one, apparently. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, okay. So let's wrap this up. People, I think, need to do a self-inventory, number one. If you have not joined a group, if you're the person who's
Good
crossing the
point.
street,
Yep.
to not be seen in front of a physical building that nobody's watching anyway because they're walking with their faces in the phone or their ear pods on. So they're not even paying attention anyway. You're making a way bigger deal of this than it actually is because nobody gives a shit. If you're one of those people, a self inventory of why might be a really nice reflection. Why? Why figure it out? Why are you doing this? You don't have to tell anybody the answer. This isn't a personal thing, right? But I think it's good to be aware of our actions and the why and take ownership of it. That helps because once you know that internal inventory, then you can decide what actions you're going to take from that, right? I believed our community needed a place for people to come together, to have conversations, to make our community stronger because nobody goes and introduces themselves to the new neighbors and brings over a box of cookies anymore that was handmade because they all think they're going to die if they eat them. But maybe we can do that in a shared space, right? So that was
Yep.
my premise, and it's working. People are connecting. It's working. It's amazing. So find your why and then figure out what to do with it, because there are a lot of opportunities to do things. And if you don't like starting things yourself, maybe you get a buddy, make a buddy
Yeah,
system
start it
or
together.
start it together.
If you're not in a group of some sort, and we have multiple facets in our lives. You
Right.
could have, I have a disc golf group. I'm a part of that community. I have the valuation group. But if you're listening to this and you're not a part of a group, do you want to be? And just take a step. Just starts with one step at a time and build that. Yeah.
So Nextdoor is big here, talking about social media in Minnesota. Nextdoor is big. It's a local group for social media. A woman a couple of years ago just plopped it down, put a post out there and said, I'm an empty nester. I'm ready to talk to other people. I need other adults in my life. I will be at this restaurant on this day at this time. Show up if you want to connect. It has gotten so big that it got flooded the first night of people coming in
Wow.
because one person made one post of, I'll be here, show up. And they didn't know
Chat.
yeah, and they didn't even know each other. Maybe a few knew each other.
That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
So I'm not a big social media person, but I do climb on Instagram every once in a while just to see what my friends are doing. And of course, Instagram has somehow figured out how to advertise and all sorts of different things to get our attention. And so I was reading, I was scrolling, and I came across this sweatshirt slash t-shirt, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So tell me if you can see it.
Yep. Aw,
That's
that's
nice.
awesome.
I
And
like
so I
that.
bought,
For
I
the
want to,
listeners, the back of this shirt says, Dear person behind me, the world is a better place with you in it. Love the person in front of you. That's brilliant.
yeah, so I bought a sweatshirt for myself, a t-shirt for Sharon. The front says, "You are enough," because I think so many people don't think that they're sufficient. I
Mhm.
really would love to give out a copy of this t-shirt to everybody at the big conferences next year because I think we have such an isolated profession that we need to be giving group hugs. And even a
Do.
group hug is two people if necessary. So I just thought it was great. I'm sharing it with you guys. The company's name is Dear Person Co. Store. So it's DearPersonco.store. We need to start to figure out how we can share with people behind us that they actually are important because they are to each
Yeah,
one, to everyone, to all of us.
very cool. And a nice way to wrap.
I was going to say, I think we're calling it a wrap. So you all matter. We want to help you matter. So like and share. Just follow us because we do keep eyes on it. So please do that. And until next time, we wish you adieu.
Bye bye.